Very good evening to you. Thank you for bearing with us. It's been a very long day, but the best comes towards the very end. I'm most pleased to welcome our honorable guests, Peter Kažimír, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Olaf Scholz, Vice Chancellor and Federal Minister of Finance of the Federal Republic of Germany, and Mr. Bruno Le Maire, Minister of Economy and Finance of the Republic of France. It's been a long day. Mr. Kažimír, can I ask you for a short recap? We've been hearing a lot about digitalization, how to tax it. Can you cast some more light on this? Thank you.
Thank you for the floor. Let me start in my language. I do hope we have interpretation. Yes, we have to have. Dlho sme sa nevideli, teším sa, že tu mám svojich kolegov a priateľov, Bruna Le Maire a Olafa Scholza, ktorých považujeme za skutočných krstných otcov európskej politiky. Myslím, že ste mohli byť svedkami veľmi dobrej panelovej diskusie, kde sme zdieľali názor, že kľúčovým problémom dneška je globálny voľný obchod. Takisto, že sa snažíme posilniť a zvýšiť efektívnosť našej spolupráce. No a že potrebujeme digitalizovať a inovovať našu Európu. Pre krajiny V4 sú toto kľúčové krajiny, partnery, či je to Nemecko, Francúzsko, platí to ekonomicky, platí to aj politicky a to platí aj opačne. Napríklad pre Nemecko je V4 región kľúčový obchodný partner. Mnoho z vás možno nevie o tom, že celkový obchod Nemecka z V4 je väčší ako samotný obchod Číny s Nemeckom. So, let me continue in English. So the key item of today's agenda being the digital tax, a major topic for the entire European Union nowadays. We live in the world where the GAFAs, Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon run the show, and of course we would like to join this party. So we need to create a level playing field. We are not talking about the punishment of going after them. On the contrary, we seek fair taxation environment. So the crucial point is the fair taxation. There is a mutual understanding and joint support among field ministers for a global long-term solution. And for this, we have to wait for the OECD 2-3 years, hopefully shorter time. That being said, discuss also the need for an interim European solution. And I'm happy to say that the Visegrad countries agreed on the need for a European solution as soon as possible. And we have signed a common declaration to highlight this commitment. That's all. Thank you. Bruno, now the floor is yours.
No, I have nothing to add to what Peter just said. I think that we had a very interesting day, a very constructive one, and I want to say that it was really a great honor for me to be invited to that meeting of the V4 countries. This is the first time for me to attend such a meeting, and I found the discussions really very interesting, and I'm very happy to be here with my friend Olaf Scholz. As you know, we have presented with Olaf, after the December agreement between Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron, a roadmap for the future of the Eurozone. And we strongly think that this is a good basis for an improvement and a reinforcement of the Eurozone. But this is not a take it or leave it proposal. And we think that it was useful to have a very in-depth discussion with our P4 partners. One of them is a member of the Eurozone. 3 of them are not yet members of the Eurozone. But we want to move on in a transparent way with the view of improving the Franco-German proposal. But our determination to reinforce the Eurozone is a total determination. Because we strongly believe that in such difficult times, where there is a risk of a new financial crisis, there is a risk of new economic shocks, we need a stronger Eurozone, and that's why we were so happy to have the opportunity to talk about that with our V4 friends. The main topic has been the digital taxation. You know that Emmanuel Macron and myself, we are totally engaged in the process that should lead to the adoption of a fair and efficient digital taxation at the European level by the end of this year. And I would like me to commend the V4 countries that have decided to provide us and to deliver that very clear statement in favor of a fair and efficient digital taxation. As you know, France has proposed to introduce a sunset clause, which is a very important tool that clearly shows that as soon as there will be an OECD solution, and I thank Angel Gurria for being here today, as soon as there will be an OECD solution, we will of course replace the European solution by the international solution, so that we will have a long-term solution for a fair and efficient digital taxation. So I think that we are moving on. We have given today, thanks to Peter and thanks to the V4 countries, a new impetus to that digital taxation. It's a question of fairness. It's also a question of efficiency. So I wanted really to thank warmly Peter. We had a very good day today and a very fruitful one. Thank you.
Very much. Would you like to add some remarks, Vice Chancellor? Thank you.
So it's good to be here, and we had good discussions on the panel and later in the meetings with the finance ministers, which I think was very fruitful and still is. And so I'm happy to be here, and I'm very happy if I have the chance to come here once again. I think it is absolutely necessary that any one of us understands that the main task for the future is that we now form this European Union and that it will work to tackle the problems of the globalized world. I'm sure that anyone should understand that there will be a world of 10 billion people in the midst of this century. And if we are 450 million inhabitants of the European Union, we have a good chance to influence what is going on in this world and to defend what is worthy to us, the rule of law, democracy, social welfare state, and a good economy. If we are working together, and this has to do with the European Union, otherwise we won't be successful. And due to that, there is a lot of tasks to be fulfilled now, and one of them is that we do the next steps in the case of banking union. We have proposals. Some of them are made by the French finance minister and me, and by the two governments of Germany and France, but just to support the process of getting a common idea between all the member states in the European Union. It would be very good if we agree about most of these questions up to the end of this year, and this is really needed. We know there is a lot of things done after the last financial crisis, 2008, 9 and 10, and we have improved a lot our institutions and the ability to solve problems. We now have a single resolution mechanism. We have a better supervision of banks. We have more rules what they have to do to be banks that could be relied on. We have the ESM, and we made it to solve the problems of countries like Ireland, Portugal, Spain, and also Greece now, to get back to the financial markets when they were in a crisis. I think a strong sign of solidarity within the European Union and the Euro. But in the end, there are some questions to be done still. and they should be answered very soon, and if possible up to the end of this year, because no one of us knows when the next crisis will come. It may be in 20 years, but it may be also in 2. And if this is happening in a global level, it's absolutely necessary that we did our job, and this is what we want to do now. Just looking at the European elections, which will be held in the next year, I think that we also should know that this should be a debate of the European public about what is the task to be solved. It's not enough to have a debate during a campaign about Europe is good. This is true. But it is that we are discussing about the questions that people are thinking about. So this is foreign policy, this is the question of defense, this is the question of our common border, this is the question of refugees, migration, this is the question of social welfare in the European Union, of cohesion, this is the question of how we deal with the demands of our environment, and so on. And in the end, how we can make it that big players, big companies from Europe in the digital arena are successful. And so all these topics were on the table, and we are working on them, and I'm very happy that we did so and that we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, time is money, and these gentlemen are responsible for money, so let's spend it well. The first question.
We have a mic? Okay, good evening. I'm Fabrice Nodelandeux from the French newspaper Le Figaro in Paris. My question is for the three of you, so I hope we'll have a short answer. During this afternoon's conference, a banker that was a part of the conference wondered why there has been so many months of talk and no result, no agreement still on the digital taxation. This afternoon, you just mentioned that there was this agreement, this declaration of the V4 group. So what needs to be done? What obstacles remain? What maybe Mr. Le Maire and Mr. Casimir, you need to rise to convince maybe Mr. Scholz, if he has some reluctance? What needs to be done to move faster? Thank you.
Okay, let me start here. It's, I'm not ready to mention the list of countries which are against, this is not a very long list, just to be sure about that. I'm pretty sure about that, it's not a long list. What we need is, now is the time, and we have to be familiar with the details, and always the level of discussion, because there are going to this negotiation on the OECD level, and you know that all we are very committed to the cooperation on the OECD level, because we achieved really tremendous achievements and success together with OECD on BEPS, because it's been important for us. And now we try to target it, on 2 points, so to achieve the agreement on the global level, and at the same time to show that, as a signal, that we are fully committed to the model of fair taxation, and for that reason we need our European solution.
There is a long list of European countries in favor of digital taxation, and there is a very short list of countries against. I would say it's not even a list. And there are also some countries asking technical questions. And I think it's our duty to answer to those technical questions. How will it work? Shall we make a linkage between, as Peter said, the question of phased erosion profit shift, BEPS, and the digital taxation? Why not? I think, like Olaf, that's the question of BEPS is really a key question that should be addressed during the French G7. But I will give you my strong conviction. By the end of this year, there will be a decision on the digital taxation at the European level. I have no doubt about this.
So thank you for the question. I think we are working very hard on getting fair taxation in Europe and all over the world, because this is a big problem we have to tackle. Arbitrage in questions of taxation is more than doing it the one or the other way. The problem is that the success of our democratic states relies on the way that there is a fair taxation. And so we made a lot of progress in the last years with a lot of initiatives on the question of base erosion and profit shifting, and still some of the agreements are to be settled, but there is big progress, and we are able to implement it into the double taxation agreements which are already done between the different states, and this is hard work going on. But we are not at the end of that agenda. I think there is new activities necessary, as was already mentioned. I think in the international level, it makes sense to find out whether there could be a new step, a new progress, because most of the problems which we are addressing, discussing about the fair taxation of digital companies, is that there is a problem of base erosion and profit shifting, so it's necessary to solve that. We agreed in Europe that we are working on solutions which will be handled in the European Union, and this is so also with the proposal, with the agreement of the two governments of Germany and France in Meseberg, where we said that there should be a solution, and we put in the paper that it should be found this year. And now everyone is working very hard to find a solution how we can get the necessary fairness in taxation, because it's obviously that it could not be accepted that there are big companies in the world making the biggest profits and doing not their part for financing the economies of the countries where they earn their money. So this is something not easy to solve, but something that is addressed now. Let me just make a remark. I think we are not that late, because the question is raised with the success of these companies, and this success is not too old. So on an international level, on an European level, we are discussing about a question which is on the table since 10 or 5 years. So it takes some time to find a solution now, but usually we would have discussed a question like this 50 years later, and this is not the case. We are now on the track to solve it as fast as possible.
Thank you very much. Further questions? Next, round of David.
Thank you, and I would like to ask Mr. Scholz and Mr. Lammer, and of course also Mr. Kashmir, was there any discussion at the meeting before about future using of your funds linked to issues of rule of law? And if there was, what was this about? And if I may, one specific question for Mr. Scholz, would German SPD would consider to support Mara Šefčovič for Spitzenkandidat for European, for President of the European Commission, for European Socialists? Thank you.
First, I'm not the president of the party, I'm the vice president. And we are discussing this question on the European level, and I think this is the progress. The decision will be taken on a European level and not on a national level. And so we discussed about the procedure. The leaders of the socialist parties in Europe, the Social Democratic Party, are in a debate. They are discussing very intensely. I know it because I'm the vice president of the party very well. But the agreement is that we do not make any announcement before we found a common idea about the solution, and so I won't change this attitude, which I think was very successful and is very good for the group, because it is a group which is asking for solidarity in society, and so this should be the approach how we deal with each other and do our job as politicians. Second, yes, we discussed the question of the rule of law. And it's good that we did so, and we will continue to do so, because this is something which should be not mentioned. We all are together in the European Union because we have common ideas, and this is for all member countries the same, and all the people of all the member countries of the European Union, the member states, that we agree about common principles which are important for us. This is democracy, and this is also the rule of law, which means that being a minority, being it politically, or being it an ethnic minority, or a religious minority, or due to different reasons, you are not to be afraid of being this minority. So democracy in Europe is democracy and the rule of law, and something else which are not now on the table but which are important as well. I think there is the question of our view on social welfare, our special view on a very successful market economy, on progress and innovation in the world. I think it is very good to understand that we are now 27, 28, next time 27, then later a bit more, I think, member states of the European Union. But we are not just settled in Europe. We are also a group of people that have common ideas about how we should live together. And so it's important that we discuss it, and I will say it will be a debate even in 100 years.
Gentlemen, would like to add anything else on the election? Okay. So, time is money, and we are running out of it. We have time for 2 questions. Please.
New French journalist. The question for Mr. Casimir. I have listened to you all day long, and you seem to wish very much more integration, more European integration. How can you do with partners of the V4 parties to follow this way? For example, yes, they don't want they don't want more Europe, they don't want more integration. And yesterday, for example, they decided to file a complaint against the posted workers directive. So how do we do with such partners?
There is no doubt that my country, Czech Republic, is a part of Visegrad 4 region. Historically, mentally, we are a part of this part of Europe. My country is in a specific situation because we are, since the 1st January 2009, the part of member of Eurozone, very proud member of Eurozone, based on public support, with very strong public support to the membership in Eurozone. So our destiny is channeled to the Eurozone and to the European Union. Again, based on public polls, our nation is extremely pro-European. Even now, it's of course after crisis, this percentage is a little bit lower, but still we are among the leaders in the Europe. Talking about our family, we form, so there are many other reasons, So one, for example, why the Czech Republic or Poland are not members of Eurozone now. Our homework in the Eurozone is to clear up the rules of the club, because to be very open, in 2009 we entered to the club with different rules, like we have now, So I'm pretty sure that first of all we have to finish our homework, to complete architecture of the monetary union, at least to have an idea about the end game of that. And that's the reason why we welcome the Messenberg paper, because there you can find out a lot of details, on this map, on this mosaic. I just can promise to Hungarian colleagues, for example, that we can prove that in Slovakia, after joining to the Eurozone, our GDP went up by additional 10%, So our additional value, the membership, is that we gained additional 10% of GDP, and we can prove it, So I think this is very good inspiration for for them, for Hungary, Poland, and Czech Republic. And the rest is what Olaf Scholz mentioned. So we have 27 democracies, 27 since next year ways of how to rule the society, you know, with certain specific approaches. But what's important is discussion, and I have to welcome, really, I have to appreciate the very open discussion among the no taboos where in this in the room. I think this is important.
Thank you very much. Very last question. David Brown again, thank you.
Very quick one for all the ministers, if I may. Is it there's a lot of talks about strategic autonomy of the EU. How do you see the economic dimension of it, or strategic autonomy of the EU? Now, what the EU should do on foreign affairs, security, and so. Do you see this discussion should also have a economic dimension?
I think we all could answer simultaneously, more or less, but I think any one of us understands that this is now the time for a change. We must discuss not just about regulations, about building the single market or things like that. We have to discuss about political items which are important for our future. And this is foreign policy, this is defense, this is borders, this is migration, and so on. And I think if we do so, we have a good chance that Europe will be one of the big groups in the world discussing about the things to be done. And if we do not manage to change to questions which are of our common interest and not just rules of a single market, I think we will miss the objectives for the future. But if we do so, we will have some debates, but possibly better outcomes. So possibly it is also a chance to give this idea. Sometimes you hear complaints about Europe. If not anyone agrees about the following question, what is the sense of Europe? The answer is, because we are together, we have the chance to find compromises and solutions after having debated our different perspectives and views about the question. It is not that something is coming from the sky down to us and we are sitting together having the same idea. Democracy, and even a European democracy, is that we have the chance to find a common solution via debate and working on it. And this will never end. So that we have debates about all these questions is a progress and not a problem.
I may add just 2 or 3 words just to tell you that behind the economic questions, there are always strategic issues and strategic challenges. Behind the question of the common currency, which proved to be maybe the most important political achievements for 20 years, there is the question of independence. And when you are looking at the last decisions taken by the American authorities with the extraterritorial sanctions, you can see that the euro is the only way to get more independence. And we are working now very hard to try to have a totally independent European financial institution so that we can get rid of those extraterritorial sanctions and decide where we want to trade and with which kind of countries. Behind the question of innovation and new technologies, there is also the key question of technological sovereignty. And there won't be, in the 21st century, any political sovereignty without a technological sovereignty. You cannot build a political sovereignty if you are dependent on the United States or on China for artificial intelligence. I cannot imagine a political independence and sovereignty based on data which would be in the hands of Chinese or American companies. So behind the question of innovation, you have the question of sovereignty. So I think that we are aware with Olaf and with Peter that all that we are doing in the economic field has also key political consequences for the sake of one single thing, having a strong and independent Europe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for interesting questions and for sharing inspirational insights, gentlemen.